Next up, we got the team up north, who it's been, about 4 straight years that they've beaten Ohio State. Things looking pretty good for Sharon Moore and company. And, Drew, we just talked about that finish, right, for Billy Napier. How about Michigan, what they're able to do? And with more on that and Bryce Underwood and what he means to the Michigan Wolverines, we'll send it over to Sam Webb of Michigan Insider.
My favorite recruit in Michigan's 2025 class is Belleville, Michigan quarterback Bryce Underwood. And the Wolverines got a heavy dose of him in bowl prep, where the young man got a chance to really show his teammates what he brings to the table. And it's the same thing he showed at Belleville High School: preparation, leadership, stepping onto the practice field and commanding the room, commanding the field in the same way he did with his high school teammates, showing those veteran guys that he's going to step on the field and not expect them to just follow him because of who he is, because he has the 5 stars, because he has the big-time NIL deal. He's a guy that's going to prepare. He's a guy that's going to earn his way, not just be a star because he has the stars next to his name, a guy who's going to study his craft, a guy that's going to prepare in the film room just like he did when he was a high school player. The coaches have been wild. His teammates have been wild. And I think the fans are going to be wild as well. The question is, will it be in week 1 or will it be later on in the season? He's going to have to compete for it with Mikey Keene, the transfer from Fresno State. So we'll have to wait until, I think, a few weeks into the season before you see the wonderkin from Belleville High School. But Bryce Underwood is the one to look out for, the number 1 player in the country in 2025.
Appreciate Sam Webb, as always bringing the juice. And, guys, I want to start with this, right, because we're talking about the number 1 player in the country. We talked about LSU just a little while ago. We didn't touch on Bryce Underwood and what he could have meant to LSU. Maybe it doesn't matter because he's going to be suiting up for the Maize and Blue. Tom, I really want to start with you. Obviously, your job is to cover recruiting. You've seen a lot of different things between Travis Hunter going from Florida State to Jackson State. You go down the line of the type of flips that you've seen in your lifetime. Where does Bryce Underwood, flipping just a few weeks before signing day from LSU to Michigan, kind of rank up there with what you've seen before?
It's at the top, and it's crazy because he's an in-state kid. That shouldn't be the case. But I'm telling you, he was so locked in for such a long time at LSU. I remember being at the Nike Next Ones event in Vegas last year, right around the Super Bowl, and I talked to him, and he is just adamant, like, I'm not going anywhere. I want to be at LSU. I'm talking to his dad. I'm talking to people around him. They're all singing the same tune. There is not a single person, his quarterback coach, not a single person saying, he's a little on the fence. He's going to take some trips. He might do this. He might do that. It was all LSU. And then obviously I started hearing the rumblings about a variety of different things, whether it was he may not want to play for Jim Harbaugh down the road, which is why the Michigan thing came to play, which was why Michigan was never a factor. But as soon as Sharon Moore became the guy, things started getting a little interesting. But it's just a massive win because it changes everything about the class. I don't think they get Andrew Babalola at that point if he doesn't end up at Michigan. And they had an opportunity to get Derek Meadows at one point. He was very much involved, but then he kind of, not to pivot, but Derek Meadows ended up going to the place where he really wanted to be from day one, which was Alabama. So I just feel like this whole class started coming together down the stretch, and I think future classes, especially at the receiver position, after they see what Bryce Underwood's going to do, I think it is going to be massive for them over the next 6 months or so.
Andrew, the number 1 player in the 24/7 Sports Transfer Portal. It's taking. I know we're in like hour 3 here, but I want to set the table for you just in terms of what Michigan fans can not only expect this season, but over the next 3 to 4 years of Bryce Underwood.
I mean, he's the guy that can get them back to the national title game, right? Back to the college football playoff. We're talking about someone that's went 50-4 as a starting quarterback over 4 years, over 11,000 passing yards, over 150 career touchdown passes. This is the difference maker. I always compare him to Vince Young. He's someone that can beat you with his arm. He can beat you with his legs. And really, him getting into the boat opened the door for all of these other players to jump in as well and take their talents to Michigan. I think it is setting the stage where we'll see what happens in 2025. Sam kind of mentioned it. All right, is Bryce the week 1 starter? Is it Mickey Keene? What do they do there? All I think that matters is Bryce gets some reps because you build towards 2026. And, Michigan last season, 131st in passing offense. They have to get better at that department. They've added a few wide receivers through the transfer portal. The guy I kind of have circled, Andrew Marsh, right? Top 100 player for us. Michigan gets him out of Texas. He was kind of looking around at various points. He ends up sticking with the Wolverines. He goes through bowl practices with Bryce Underwood. Michigan needs some difference makers on the outside. You talk to people in Ann Arbor, they're fired up about this Andrew Marsh kid because they like his size. They like his ability to get in and out of his breaks. They like his hands. He is someone that I don't think is being talked enough about in this class. Yeah, Ty Haywood. Yeah, Andrew Babalola. Yeah, Bryce Underwood. But hey, what about that wide receiver position? Michigan's wide receivers underproduced this past season.
Tom, talk to me a little bit about Sharon Moore, the outlook of Michigan, maybe past this season, right? Because they kind of ride the wave of Bryce Underwood. And we talked about Florida and DJ Lagway and what that kind of meant towards the momentum of the end of the season there and the end of the cycle. What does Michigan look like, not just 2025, but beyond? Can we expect a top 10 caliber recruiting program from Sharon Moore and company?
Obviously, things like NIL, it's going to be a factor when it comes down to it, but I do like what they're doing. I like the setup that Sharon Moore and his staff has when you're talking about guys like Albert Karshnia, Sam Popper. The guys behind the scenes are doing a phenomenal job. You know what they're doing is putting relationships first, and that's really what they're putting a lot of they're banking on, and they want that to be the core of this class. And you really look at the class that they landed this cycle. When you talk to Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, the first thing he says is that the relationships. When you talk to Kainoa Winston, they did such a good job of connecting with those guys and their families that's why I see everybody buying into the future. And again, everybody's going to offer a lot of the same money, and that's going to be an even playing field. What Michigan does is they seem to truly care about their kids, and they want the best for them, and they're not just selling some fake stuff that they're trying to get them to buy in. They're taking a real, authentic approach, and I really think that starts at the top of Sharon Moore.
Drew, this is one of the most talented classes in the country, even outside Bryce Underwood. You talked about some guys like Andrew Marsh defensively. I know there's a guy you like in that secondary that I want to make sure that we talk about because I can see him making an impact early. Tell us a little bit about Elijah Dotson, who played his high school football with Bryce Underwood.
Yeah, we're always looking for guys that are, doing it as a senior. And if they're doing it in all three phases, I mean, our eyes are going to light up. And it's the same thing for the people in the football offices at Michigan. I thought the Wolverines, some of their evaluations down the stretch, they were in that kind of same mode like Florida was in terms of, all right, what does the long-term outlook here? We need a kind of sign of hope, and that's going to allow us to get it done on the recruiting trail. For Florida, it was DJ Lagway. For Michigan, it was Bryce Underwood. They had these guys ready to go. They flip Elijah Dotson from Pittsburgh. I think he's a two-deep safety. You could also play him in a single high. Did it on both sides of the ball. He's instinctive. He'll come up and hit you. One of these safety prospects that can do a little bit of everything, and they're pairing him with Kainoa Winston, who isn't the biggest individual, but you look at Michigan over the years, what they've done in that secondary. Some of the best players don't have the measurables for them. They don't have the ideal ones. They find guys that see the game better than most. I think Kainoa Winston, you could put him in that same category. So really like the defensive class. Nathaniel Marshall, we need to bring him up. The edge rusher, we liked a lot of flashes for him. And then how about the cornerback, Shamari Earls? He could be another Will Johnson, right? There was a time he was committed to Georgia. He misses his senior season due to injury. I mean, he is a height, weight, speed corner. You can play him out on the boundary, one of the best track and field profiles in the class. That's a flip that also kind of went under the radar with the whole Bryce Underwood thing. But overall, this class, highest ranked recruiting class since 2017 for Michigan. They need to keep the momentum going now that you have Bryce Underwood in the boat. What does the 2026 recruiting class look like? Capitalize on it. Go find some Nico Collins. Go find some Donovan Peoples-Jones, these difference makers at wide receivers, because that's the next step for Michigan. That's where they need to get better. They need to give Bryce Underwood some weapons.
I was just going to say I'm glad you brought up the fact that Michigan is they have this strong evaluations. One thing I like about this that I've kind of picked up is that they trust their evaluations. And I say that in the sense of when it comes to NIL, I don't think that they're going to overpay just for a splash, just because the fans want him, just because it's a kid that used to be a top 100 guy, top 247 guy. They're going to trust their evaluation, not overpay, and just trust what they're doing inside the building, which is it's really impressive.
Big year for Michigan coming up. We'll see if it's Bryce Underwood. That's what we'd expect. They got a lot invested in him, not only emotionally, but financially as well. For more Michigan, make sure to check out themichiganinsider.com for the latest